Shalom Yesharala. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Ruchah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to the Ophla Akim that's preached the word in all truth and sincerity, along with your Israelite foreigner brothers that are like the heathens. But the line and false side goes back to the nation of Israel, which nation of Israel are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans through the prophecies and curses of Deuteronomy 28 chapter and throughout the Bible. So this is Brother Yakal. I'm back with the video, and today's video will be entitled "This Truth Cannot Be Stopped." I'm just gonna go on some precepts and Lord willing, you brothers and you sisters out there be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shimon Shai. You know, and slacking for the noise in the background. I can hear it. All of a sudden my neighbor want to pull right here next. He want to park next to my window and play music all of a sudden. So just Satan. But Lord and I can still hear me. Just like during the time and during the Acts of the Apostles, it was a lot of persecution going on in the church. But the truth was still uh, spreading. You know, and I just want to go into a lesson in regards to that because this truth is spreading now. The house of David, which is the elect of Israel, is being gathered together by the word of the Holy One. And there's nothing Esau can do to stop it. Just how it was back then, it was nothing that the wicked Israelites can do to stop this truth from going out. The preaching of Yahweh Shemon Shai. You know, Now I want to start off in the book of Acts chapter 5 verse 12. It says, and by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people, and they were all with one accord in Solomon's porch. And of the rest durst no man join himself to them, but the people magnified them, and believers were the more added to the Lord, multitudes both of men and women. So more believers was added to the church. Both men and both Israelite men and Israelite women. Through the preaching of Yahweh Shemon Shai back then from the apostles. It says, in so much that they brought forth the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and couches, that at the least the shadow of Peter passing by might overshadow some of them. There came also a multitude out of the cities round about unto Jerusalem, bringing sick folks and them which were vexed with unclean spirits, and they were healed every one. So the apostles, they were healing the Israelite believers, man, you know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemon Shai. It says, verse 17, then the high priest rose up, and all they that were with him, which is the sect of the Sadducees, and were filled with indignation. And these were the wicked. They were wicked, man, because they hated Yahweh Shai, and the apostles, they came in the spirit, in the name of Yahweh Shemon Shai, and they hated them as well, you know. It says, and laid their hands on the apostles and put them in common prison. So the apostles, they were put in prison. But the angel of the Lord by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth and said, go and stand and speak in the temple to the people of all the words of his life. And when they heard that, um, they entered into the temple early in the morning and taught. But the high priest came and they that were with him and called the council together and all the senate of the children of Israel and sent to the prison to have them brought, man. So the angel of the Lord, broke open the prison doors for the apostles to go out and teach, and and which that was a miracle. That was divine intervention, and it led to the wicked council, Israelite council, which is a Sanhedrin, coming together and inquiring what was going on. It says, but when the officers came and found them not in the prison, they returned and told, saying, this prison truly have found we shut with all safety, and the keepers, which is, the keepers are the prison guards, standing without before the doors. But when we had open, we found no man within. So, when they imprisoned the apostles, everything was shut up, doors, everything was locked and secured, in other words. But when they opened the door, they didn't find the apostles in there because the angel of the Lord broke them out. You know, and this is the point. Verse 24 says, "Now when the chief priest, when the high priest and the captain of the temple and the chief priest heard these things, they doubted of them whereunto this will grow, man." So this wicked high priest, another and the wicked chief priest, they doubt that the truth will grow. They doubt that Yahweh Shah will grow, man. You know, and Esau thinks of the same thing. Esau, and 2/3 of our people against against this truth. They don't think that this truth is going to grow, expand, which it has, and the truth is keep continuing to grow. Because it's gonna be a point in time when the Lord gonna pour out. You know, He gonna give His elect spiritual power, and they're gonna be doing miracles, man. And I speak as a man, but I believe it's gonna begin with the apostles. That was a great millstone. Because it'll only make sense that the Lord will give, you know, begin on with Apostle Hard, spiritual power to start healing the believers of Israel. That's of the elect, man, because they're seasoned, they're veterans in this truth, and they have a lot of experience on how to deal with Jake and people with, So, but I speak as a man, but I believe that the Lord will do that. It will make sense the Lord will do that just to deal with order, you know. So, but hey, no one can hinder this truth, man. As the wicked um, scribes and the wicked high priests and chief priests were trying to do back then. But this is Sirach 15:10. It says, "For praise shall be uttered in wisdom." Right. So that's why we praise Yahweh Shemon Shai and it's uttered in wisdom. You know, it said, "And the Lord will prosper." See, the Lord is prospering, making this truth prosper. You know, this truth is not falling on deaf ears because we understand that this truth is only for the elect of Israel. As the scripture says, if our gospel is hid, it is hid to them that are lost. So if if a if an Israelite can't receive this truth, then that means that this truth is not for them. They're not part of the elect. And let's just define our word prosper. It says succeed in material terms, be financially successful, uh, flourish physically, grow strong and healthy, make successful. Right. So the Lord's making this truth, this doctrine, the apostles, Elder Great Millstone doctrine, successful. You know, it says flourish, thrive, do well, bloom, blossom, you know, progress, right? You know, and when you go to 2 Corinthians 13:8, for we can do nothing against the truth but for the truth. Yeah, so at the end of the day, Esau can't do nothing against the truth but before it. So he's paying off all these, you know, these gainsayers and naysayers that come up against the truth. Your vocab Malones, but it's not working. You know, and that proves that we had the truth, man. Because why is Esau making all this effort to try to hinder the truth from going out? Because that's the greatest mystery in the world. You know that the true Israelites are us so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Esau trying to suppress that. You know, and he knows we the true Israelites, man. He knows we descend from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but we understand the devil doesn't play fair. So at the end of the day, Esau can't do nothing against the truth but before it. So when he comes down with great wrath upon his Israelites, that means we had the truth. Because why would Esau have all this energy, all this effort to try to, kill us, all for us all for us, just preaching the gospel, man. You know. And when you go to Proverbs 21:30, it says there is no wisdom nor understanding nor counsel against the Lord, man. You know. So Esau has plans and agendas you know, to get us off the street corners. Which when that happens, that's a prophecy being fulfilled as well. The famine of word, you know, the famine of word, which when the Lord would draw his prophets from off the street corners, that's a prophecy, man. So if he does have a decree put out that you know that no teachings can you can't teach the Bible on the street corners, or then hey, that would mean that that's just a famine of the word, man. But at the end of the day, there's no wisdom nor understanding nor counsel against the Lord, man. Because the Lord's counsel, which is his prophecies, is going to reign supreme. You know, Isaiah 55 in verse, let's see, yep, Isaiah 55 and 11, it says, "So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth, it shall not return to me void." Yeah, so, the Lord's word that goeth forth out of his mouth, which are his prophecies, is not going to return to him void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. So it's going to prosper. All the prophecies of the Lord will come to pass. Just each prophecy comes, is fulfilled in its own, set appointed time. So just because it's taken a long time for the Lord prophecies, to come to pass, don't mean they're not gonna come. They're not gonna come to pass. They will. It's just every prophecy will be fulfilled according to the Lord's time. Because the Lord is very patient. You know, so yeah, I got thought of one more Habakkuk. You know, Habakkuk 2 and verse 3. It says, "For the vision which are the prophecies, yet for the appointed time, but at the end it shall speak." So at the end it shall speak. And how will the prophecies speak when they be fulfilled? When you see the prophecies being made known live and direct, that's how it's speaking and not lying. It says, "Though it tarry, though it can take a long time, according to our time, because we understand time with the Lord is nothing. you know. But sometimes, we in this flesh, so sometimes it can feel long to us, but it's really not, when you really look at it, But so though it tarry, though the prophecies can take long or be prolonged, it's just wait for it because it will surely come. It will not tarry, right? So it's gonna surely come. It's not gonna tarry, man. You know, it's gonna be a point in time, man, when we're not gonna be out here preaching no more due to the famine of the word. It's gonna be a point in time when it's gonna be a lot of military troops on every streets on the streets of America. It's gonna be military checkpoints very soon. This America that is gonna turn into a third world country very soon. Through the Civil War, you know, insurrections. You know, so it you know this truth will not be hindered. So yeah, I just want to make a quick lesson on that. Lord willing, I was edified, and until next time, Shalom.